Welcome to Charts Today. It is Thursday, the 11th of June. I am in Leipzig. I was giving a training course here yesterday to the European Energy Exchange, and I'm spending the day with them again today. And their summer party tonight. And so the interesting thing is that Nasdaq chart is actually after a good 2-month run, which is unusual on a 60-minute chart. That's a good long trend on the 60-minute, has broken downside target, met another new one about to be activated. We are seeing the futures up this morning, so it may not be activated today, but the fact is we are below the cloud. And if we actually look at the futures, we can see that we do have downside targets that are actually activated. There's one that's activated and one that's not activated. Multiple selling thrust producing multiple targets. The S&P future, not as bearish. We have a downside target that's met, but we are below the cloud there as well. So that is also key. But those futures set to open higher today. And of course, we are awaiting the SpaceX announcement on price today and then launch tomorrow. So markets are waiting with trepidation. If we look at the UK market on the short-term chart, we are lower there as well. On the daily chart, we are waiting to see if we activate that downside target. And Germany, where I am this morning, the DAX is very flat, so a bit of a hard call there as well. Looking at Brent crude, that actually has fallen this morning, given that there's tensions in the Middle East are rising. It's quite interesting to see that crude oil is falling. We went out as neutral to clients in our energy report this morning. We went out as bullish on gas, and German power also breaking to new highs, which I've been watching yesterday in detail with the European Energy Exchange. And UK power markets, we have actually seen upside targets there. So no real respite for energy in Europe, although we are seeing the oil price a little bit lower. Looking at some of the other commodities, coffee has really fallen lately, having broken that downside level, and that target nearly met to the same support level some time ago. Sugar down 1.2%, waiting to see which way we break there. If we look at the 60-minute chart, we've got downside targets, and if we look at the weekly chart, downside targets there as well. So it's not a very pretty picture for sugar. Gold, we talked about gold. The long-term downside target was activated. I talked about this in my IG index interview. You can find it on the updated website under videos, and that was really quite interesting. I did that last week. But gold is downside target still above the cloud, but if we look at the daily chart, that downside target that was given is nearly met now, and the 60-minute charts also quite key. Looking at silver, that's up 1% this morning, but not enough really to change the picture. Bearish on the 60-minute, bearish on the daily, and bearish on the weekly with that downside target, although we are still just above the cloud, so probably more neutral. But we do have these downside targets, and we just can't ignore that. Looking at the tech majors, Apple was badly hit the day before. It was hit day before yesterday. Did see a little bit of a respite there, maybe a little doji candle there on the end of the daily chart. But the reality is that the short term, if we move to new lows, we activate quite a big downside target. And we saw Amazon off 2.5%, Alphabet off 2.5%, Microsoft, that recovery actually failing a little bit, so that's quite key. And we do have these upside targets, but we pulled right back into the pattern, so that's just on hold really. And we saw Nvidia down 3.8%, new downside target. And we look at the 60-minute chart, multiple downside targets for Nvidia, so that we are just seeing chip stocks having run so high, seeing that fall away. And if we look at Tesla, if you like, a near relation to SpaceX, we are seeing that pullback as well, the lower high, lower low, discounting that target for the moment. If we move to a new high above 450, then we would start to look at that target again. You can see these downside targets kicked in, so that's quite significant there. So all in all, if we look at the Dow 30, it was defensives that were up yesterday. Coke looking quite strong, activating a new upside price target. Walmart back in the fray. They've had a good run, but they've still got to break that 135 level. Travelers Group, this has got multiple upside targets again, just got to break to new highs. So we can see it was mostly defensives that were up. Downside, Caterpillar, which has been a strong performer, did pull back, but the chart still looks pretty good. But the key thing today is going to be watching that Nasdaq chart, and when that market opens and we see that SpaceX, even though we've got the futures up this morning, will we activate that downside target? That's it for today from Leipzig. I'm here again tomorrow morning and then back in the fold in London on Monday. Until then, bye for now.